serves as an explainer piece. Next, we add key points to accentuate the presentation with mental cues to reference again and again. Finally, we have structured practice sessions that can be done anywhere from the couch to the course, all intended to train movement patterns and improve a student's state of play. Testing modules are used again to give coaches the tools to see progress over the lifespan of a program. Put together, our library gives coaches the tools today to build out considered training programs for their students tomorrow. Don't like the presentation of content in the modules? We realize that there are many coaches that will want to build out their own video and content library, and we've made this process as easy as can be. A coach can easily go into any of the iconic modules, swap out their videos for ours, and edit the text, key points, and practice sessions to better match how they teach. We believe this allows our coaches to create custom content at their own pace and still have access to a complete iconic textbook. Iconic allows for all forms of communication, sending images and videos, making calls, and live video through a proprietary app function that we call Smart Chat. All comms are relative to the modules being assigned, giving you context to questions being asked, or the ability to leave feedback on student progress appropriately. Less range time, more income, better results. These aren't empty statements. We've talked to hundreds of coaches over the years, and these are the three things we hear time and time again. We believe Iconic can get you there, and we want to help you make the changes you need to do so. The first and often overlooked first step to achieving this goal is change. With Iconic, you don't start with the lesson. You start with digital delivery, the simple act of sending your student modules through the app. That seems pretty basic, right? Let us tell you why it's crucial to the health and growth of your business, and we can relate it to our three goals. 1. Less time on the range. Delivering lesson modules digitally through the app does the obvious for you. It gives your student the instruction materials and practice sessions up front. Now they can have a permanent record of what you sent to them, and they can view, review, and practice the materials at any time and any place they want. This not only helps you as the coach, but it's also a much more effective way for your students to retain the important information. 2. More income. Removing the in-person layer allows you to build out fully remote programs in a fraction of the time it takes you to deliver a day of in-person lessons. By combining a mix of remote, blended, and in-person programs for your students, you can scale your business without the restrictions of time and geography. 3. Better results. The evolution of coaching golf is a never-ending journey. We've designed Iconic around the concept of truly training and developing golfers. We know you all know what to do, but maybe it's been difficult to put everything together in a disjointed and analog world. Iconic just makes it easier for you to be great at what you do. The base level of Iconic is a free license to the coach and a $20 per month subscription for each student. We have wholesale options that allow you to buy the subscriptions at a lower cost. This is the first opportunity for you to create a new revenue stream and start earning income from student subscriptions. To offset the need for you to be creating value from the jump, the base subscription will deliver a module to your students once per week in the form of mini digital programming. These programs will be automatically delivered to all of your students at the same time each week. It's a great value, and it requires nothing more than a simple opt-in from you. We also want to be a resource to help you become more familiar with process training. We've created a great starting point for any coach to begin crafting structured programs. Using our templates can get you started delivering real process training programs with ease. Less range time, more income, and better results are all right at your fingertips. Reach out to us for more information on getting started with Iconic. There's power in your process. We're just here to help you deliver it.
Good morning and welcome to the 2020 Teaching Symposium, supported by Techno Gym, Iconic Golf, PXG, and Super Speed. We're pleased to have you tuning in today as we kick off what we consider to be a great week of education. And although it looks far different than what we anticipated it would in February, we're excited and grateful to have you all here and appreciate the time and flexibility that three of our great presenters, Jason Bale, John Bierkin, and Jim McLean, have put into making this week a success. Without further ado, I'm going to move forward in introducing our first speaker, Jason Baile. Jason serves as the PGA Director of Instruction at Jupiter Hills Club and has been there for the last year. Prior to moving here from South Carolina, Jason has received many accolades and is a TPI certified level 3 instructor. Jason's presentation today will be brought to you live from the section office, where he will have a very small audience of PGA members who will be interacting. As we get started, I want to remind you to use the chat feature to help make this presentation as informative, beneficial, and valuable as it can be to you, the attendee. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you enjoy the presentation.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jason Baile. I'm the PGA Director of Instruction at Jupiter Hills Club in Tequesta, Florida. I want to thank you all for tuning in this morning and getting together with us. We certainly wished it was different, but I certainly want to thank the section staff, Jeff and Jackie and Meredith, for all their hard work with this to make this as seamless as possible. And I want to thank our fellow PGA professionals that are in the room today to give me some type of audience to talk to. So as we go, this is supposed to be an interactive situation. It's a little bit of a journey about how I kind of compartmentalize things to create a coaching culture at the clubs that I've been lucky enough to serve. And it's a journey from not a very good coach to hopefully a better one. And I hope during this that you will ask some questions as we go. Feel free to type those in and send them. We'll try to make it as interactive as possible. But I want to take you on a little journey. So let's get started. So the title of this presentation is Creating a Coaching Culture. Not going forward, there we go. And as we go through this journey, can you click? Thank you. I always love this quote, which was, coaching is taking a player where they can't take themselves. We've all seen those players on the range that can't seem to quite pick up the game. They're bouncing back and forth from different thing to different thing, probably digging way too deep into YouTube while they do that, and asking anybody and everybody for advice. And I think that's where really, really good coaching comes in, is taking that player where they couldn't take themselves. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is take a little, if you got your phone with you, take a snapshot of this slide, because if we're going to talk about coaching, I want you to start coaching today. So this is all my contact information. And as I try to get better at these presentations and try to get better as a speaker, I would love your coaching on how I could do a better job. So this is how to contact me. And over the next couple of days, if there is anything that you think I could add to this presentation or do better, I would love the coaching, as harsh as it can get if need be. There we go. So I think it was last year at the Top 100 Summit in Pinehurst, where our president, Susie Whaley, gave a speech, and she was talking about our model and the PGA and how we're working towards that. And she used this phrase, transactional versus transformational. And I think that's really at the heart of this presentation. I've been working on some things in my own coaching and at our club at Jupiter Hills, and things I'd always wanted to try in the past. And until she brought that to my attention, I couldn't quite wrap my arms around how to actually say that to our club or to explain that to a general manager or a director of golf. And as soon as transactional versus transformational was uttered from President Whaley, it hit me. That's what I've always been trying to create. So through this, I want you to kind of keep that theme in mind. What is transactional for a relationship, which seems to be the history of what our golf lessons are about, is about, you know, you pay me and I'll help you get better. All right. And I'll see you next time you need me to help you get better. We want to try, at least at Jupiter Hills for sure, is what I'm lucky enough to have the support of the club to do, is to create a transformational environment. So I want to kind of give you a little bit of a background on me and let you get a little look into maybe why my brain works the way it does and how my history in coaching has gone. My family history, my father was a high school football and basketball coach for over 40 years. My mother is a dance instructor. She's owns a dance studio with about 800 kids in North Carolina. My sister is the director of dance there. And both of my younger brothers are tennis professionals at different clubs in Eastern North Carolina. So my family doesn't know how to have exactly real jobs. Jason Baile, the accountant, was never an option. Jason Baile, the lawyer, was never an option. I wanted to coach college basketball from the time I was about 8 years old. Never thought of it doing anything else. That's all I ever wanted to do until I found golf later on in high school. And I struggled with going back and forth. What do I want to be? What do I want to be? And finally just settled on we were going to be a golf instructor. There were less of those getting fired at the time than college basketball coaches. So my family history has coaching and teaching running through it. The stories at Thanksgiving are pretty good when it comes to us talking about students and athletes and things like that. So it's a lot of fun from that standpoint. But I have a lot of that in my background, which is why I struggled early on as a golf instructor. So another big part of like my growth was TPI. As was mentioned before by Meredith, I'm a TPI certified level 3 golf instructor, and I work on their faculty at different times during the year. So my TPI family's become really close to me. They're people that I bounce ideas off of. And just from a TPI standpoint, learning the body, understanding how limitations affect the golf swing, and learning those teach around tactics have always been huge from my standpoint. And then Mike Adams and Bioswing Dynamics has helped me understand a lot of teach around situations and how to match up things where players can immediately get better. Mike has always been one of the best at that, and I'm thankful for it. James Seekman and Cameron McCormick really took me into a different direction. They're mentors of mine, and while I have many, these two did something for me that I wasn't really able to do for myself. So when I met Cam several years ago and listened to him speak, one of the first times he ever kind of spoke in public, I didn't hear a golf instructor. I heard a coach. And while I was coming from a world where I thought if I made everybody's golf swing look really cool at the top, and I had them bring the golf club down on plane, and I had them finish in great positions, that they would play better golf. And Cam immediately took me out of that world. And his methodology of looking at skill, his stories about how he worked with Jordan in the beginning, and the funny idiosyncrasies of Jordan's golf swing, and how that didn't affect his skill level. And he really made me start thinking in a completely different world. James did the same thing from a coaching standpoint, following up, accountability on the player. And I immediately went back to, I'm supposed to be coaching college basketball in my mind as an 8-year-old, and why can't I use those same things when I'm coaching golf? Why do I tend to be teaching golf, all right, in this transactional world, and not creating this transformational coaching relationship that allows for individuality, that allows for skill to look different, that's absence of pure style preference, which I think as coaches we all get kind of caught up in, that doesn't require this methodology, okay, that I have to stick to. And so when I started thinking in that way, I became a better coach, all right? My relationships with players got better, and I really felt better about the job I was doing. I went into lessons not as a me say and you do type of thing, but as a collaborative effort trying to create relationships with active participants. And when that happened, I got to plan out my day better. So my golf lessons looked more like golf practice, and they had a whole lot more skill development in mind. And we would weave the technique changes in when needed if the skill wasn't able to be performed. So I'm very thankful for my relationship with those two mentors in my coaching life, because they were a huge turning point. Then we've got Dan Kay. Now I've used his name actually in other things, but Dan is a very private man, and he doesn't mind me telling the story, but maybe doesn't want his name involved in there. So I've got this family history of coaching. I've got this knowledge from guys like Mike Adams and Dave Phillips and Greg Rose and Lance Gill and all my friends in that world. And they've taught me all these things about the body. And now James and Cam have taught me all these things about that I'm allowed to coach. I'm allowed to be the Jason Baile that I wanted to be. I'm just going to do it in golf rather than basketball. And then Dan Kay asked me this question one day. So I'm at this point in my life where I'm getting a little better as a coach, and people are starting to know in my area who I am and that kind of thing. My book's pretty full. And he asked me this question, and it floors me. So before I give you the answer to that question, according to Dan, take a quick second and say, if I asked all of y'all, what is a brand? All right, how would you define that? So Dan asked me this question, and in my head, I can formulate a picture, all right? I kind of have an idea. I cannot articulate the answer to this question at all. So Dan lets me bleed for a little while and stand there, and I can come up with nothing that I know that he will think is worthy of his question. And then he finally lets me off the hook. And, you know, of course I'm thinking, well, I got to get a logo and I got to have this, and it's Jason Baile Golf and it's all that kind of stuff. And that is 100% not what a brand is. All right. A brand is a promise that what you do works. So here I am, this coach. All right, I'm TPI certified level 3. I've got these people behind me. I know some people. My book is full, and I'm sitting there thinking I'm pretty hot stuff. He asked me this question, and it floors me. And it literally took me several days to get over feeling really bad about myself. But obviously those times in our life is when self-growth actually kicks in. And I needed that question really bad at that time in my life. I needed to find out, because I had to ask myself the question, is what I'm doing working? I know it sounds cool and it looks cool and I got this great technology and all this kind of stuff, but is what I'm doing actually working? So I started thinking about it, and then here kind of comes the journey of how I formulated and tried to make Dan K proud of me with what I was doing. He was a student of mine. A very difficult student in some ways, but he always made me better as a coach, because I always had to try harder and get better to actually reach the level of what he was looking for from his coach. So the first thing I started thinking of was, you know, other coaches attend all the practices and all the games. If I had gone the basketball route, I would be at every practice. I would script it out. I would scout teams. We would know what was going on. I would recruit the players that I wanted. We would have a game plan. We would have a win and loss record, and we would try to achieve better goals and records as we went. So Bill Belichick and Krzyzewski, Bobby Cox, these guys are at the players' games, and they're at the practices, and they can dictate. We never get to do that as golf coaches. All right, transactional once again. If they come for that hour, we will help them, and we will pat them on the ass and send them away and help that they play better. All right. Are we following up in the right way? Are we creating a relationship where they know that that's a transformational world? And very rarely we're able to do that in golf unless our culture allows us to do that. So I kind of had all this information, all right? I wanted to turn it into knowledge, and I wanted to create wisdom out of it, all right? Now, I'm from Eastern North Carolina, so I talk a little funny, and I'm not all that smart. So this, from here on out, is going to be the simple way of me figuring out how to take all this really cool information, turn it into knowledge, and then that knowledge come out in very wisdom-like ways that are very simple for people to take home. I didn't want to stand there in a golf lesson and take notes all day long and send emails all day long. I wanted us to have a clear path and clear language for that. So the first thing I set out to kind of earn Dan Kubelik's wisdom there that he gave me, oops, said his name, was develop my playbook, okay? I needed to develop a playbook. So I wanted to think of this from a coaching standpoint constantly. I wanted to use those verbiage, the verbiage that was a coach-like verbiage, so that I could always kind of come back to that. So I could always remind myself that I was a coach. So the first thing I said is kind of remembered what my mom told me when I was a kid doing a puzzle. Said, find the corner pieces first. So I wanted to find the skill corner pieces for each skill set in golf. So I looked at full swing first, okay? And I said, where is the pain point in full swing, okay? So if a student comes up to me within the first couple of swings, I want to understand through some questions and to watching them. I have what I call my 4 corner pieces. Does the player hit the center of the face? Does he control which direction the ball starts? Can he control the curve? And can he control the trajectory? I don't know of any teaching methodology that would disagree, which was what part of this was about, making this as vanilla enough that it fit anything I needed to do. I wanted it to be an adaptable strategy. I wanted it to be something that most people could not argue about too much because I didn't want to pull myself out of my playbook. All right, so we're looking at, based on the player's ability and based on the player's ball flight that they would like to achieve, all right, where's the ball hitting in the face? Where does the ball start? Can they control the direction it curves? And can they control the trajectory when needed? And I'm first of all looking for, in a full swing lesson, what's the pain point of that? Where's the real thing we've got to change? Then I took finesse wedge skills, okay? Little short shots, finesse shots around the green. I said, you got to be able to control the low point of that, be able to control the trajectory of that, be able to control the energy level, and be able to hit desired landing spots. So in a short game lesson, so to speak, or finesse wedge lesson, something around the green, I'm looking for that constantly. All right, where is that pain point? And will my first play call help me work through that pain point? Then I looked at putting and I said, well, we got to be able to hit the desired starting line, start the ball on line. We got to control speed in very small increments. We have to have the ability to read greens and what I call the Jim Colbert effect. So as I get a little older, I do understand that part of our audience might not remember Jim Colbert. And Jim Colbert, when I was a kid, had just played on the scene, was just starting on the senior tour, and he had played against Jack Nicklaus and Arnold Palmer and Hale Irwin all his life, things like that. And, you know, was a good player, but not a great player. He gets to the senior tour, and the next thing you know, he's one of the best players in the world. And Jim had a bucket hat, and he was not a very tall fellow, slightly portly. But the big thing he always did was he popped his collar, and he kind of walked around like this on the putting green, okay? And when Jim walked around like that, all right, there was nobody that was going to beat Jim that day. And so I'll tell people in a putting lesson, all right, obviously if they come to me for a putting, they don't think they're badass or they wouldn't be there, all right? But after we find the pain point in their putting, at any time we're liable to go into Jim Colbert mode and pop our collars so that we can re-identify that feeling on the golf course. So when we're talking about full swing, to keep my coaching things in order, and this is how I coach other coaches to think about it in the beginning, is that I'm looking in the first several swings in a full swing standpoint, and it doesn't always have to line up this way, and it doesn't have to always be all three. Is this golf swing too steep or too shallow to function the way the player wants it to give that player that desired ball flight? Is the club path too out to in or too in to out? And is the face too closed or too open at impact to create that? I teach a lot of elite players, but also teach the majority of my business, like I'm sure most of y'all is our average club player. And I've been at private clubs other than my time at Sea Island my entire career. And for those of us that are at private clubs, we have the ability to be fired every day by a student. All right. So we have a very small working group of people. I'm lucky that I get to teach anybody and everybody that I would like to teach. Okay. But I want to make sure that every time I've got this small captured group of people that I've been concise in my thinking. Now, one big shock for me coming to South Florida was that I didn't realize how much golf Jupiter Hills members play. All right. I was used to, I play a couple of times a week and I practice the others. Like these guys and ladies are playing golf every single day. So my golf lessons have to completely change from that point. Okay. Because he's liable not to have told me that he has a 11:30 tee time right after his 10 o'clock lesson. And I need to be able to put these things into ways that they can immediately take to the golf course. And I think that's really important as all of us grow as coaches. And I also don't want to have to take a bunch of notes. I want to remember exactly. And I'm really good at remembering anything I've ever said to anybody in a golf lesson. If my wife asked me to pick milk up on the way home, I've got no chance. But as far as golf, because I keep it in these little compartments All right, I can understand and remember everything that needs to happen in the golf swing. So like I said, the swing does not have to be too steep or too shallow. That part could be just right, okay? But the path could be too in to out and the face too closed to hit the desired ball flight, or too in to out and too open. All of those things can go through that little world. So I'm analyzing that immediately. So from the next part of it, we've kind of gone through a little bit of how I kind of categorize like the skill sets, all right? What are the skills needed, all right, to be a good player, to be a good finesse wedge player, to be a good putter, to be a good ball striker? I want to make sure I'm looking at those skills first before I make any changes. So I want to make sure that the person, if he has a cross-handed grip and that looks like two lobsters are holding it on there, but he has the skill to achieve what he needs to achieve, then why do I need to change his grip? I only need to make changes because the player's skill level won't allow him to do what he needs to do. So I always want to test for skill before I start changing technique. And a great note for younger coaches out there and all of us, if you've got a player at your club who's a really good player, and that really good player has kind of a funky style, but that style functions really well, that's the player you want to get on tape. That's the player you want some video of so you can sit at home at night and balance the steeps and shallows and balance what goes on in that swing and figure out why it functions. Because those are the fun ones. Because the thing about a functional player with a less than desirable style for most of us is where really coaching comes into play there. So if I go tugging on the wrong string, or any of us, a player comes to you for a lesson, they're a good player, they're a high-level skill player, all right, but the style isn't pretty or doesn't match what you like. If you tug on the wrong yarn of that string, of that golf swing, you can rip the whole thing apart because it no longer balances and it no longer works. So you need to dig deep into those situations to find out why that swing that doesn't look stylish actually does function as a test for you in the future on certain things. So we've understood the skill. We've understood kind of what we look at from a golf swing standpoint, at least I do. And now we got to understand the athlete factors. So in that interview or in that time that I'm spending in the beginning of a lesson as I'm testing skill, all right, I'm asking things about how much time does this player have in golf? Meaning, are they a dad who has young children at home, gets to practice once a week and plays every Saturday? All right. Or are they somebody who plays 70% more time than they actually practice? Or is it vice versa? Because that's going to tell me a lot about the information and what I'm actually going to be able to do with this player at that time. I want to make sure that any plays that I call, all right, can go back to fitting into that time frame. If somebody has a less than desirable under the plane takeaway, all right, that requires quite a bit of block practice maybe to fix, and he's a dad with two small children running around the house, he practices one afternoon if he's lucky and plays every Saturday morning, I'm not sure I'm going after that inside takeaway just yet. All right, because he's not going to play great golf. All right, his practice session is going to be a little different. It's going to be all block types of practice, and he's probably not going to play better on Saturday morning, and probably going to get fired no matter how much he likes me. Okay, so I always want to try to match that up. Obviously, the guy that says, Jason, I only play a little bit, but I love to practice. All right, then maybe those swing changes or enhancements look a little bit different. Obviously, we're looking at the fitness level and the limitation of the player. We all have them, all right? And we're looking at how is that going to manifest itself into any swing changes that we're talking about or skill development that we're talking about, and making sure that we're not putting a player in a position where they can get hurt. We always want to make sure that we're working around those. We're always talking about the gym. Are there things that oh yeah, go to the gym all the time. Maybe that's a window for another transformational moment in coaching. How about I meet you in the gym, all right, the next time before we go, and let's warm up, all right, with a band or some simple things that you feel comfortable prescribing, especially if you're TPI certified. There's a level that we can kind of go at from a golf standpoint that doesn't infringe too much on fitness or medical. And if we can kind of go into that, start working on that motor pattern a little bit, gosh, my golf coach, all right, came to the gym with me today. All right, it was really cool. We went in the gym, we worked on that move, and when I got out to the range, I could do it much better because I wasn't worried about the golf ball when we were together. And we spent a little time inside in the air conditioning. He showed me some exercises that would help me do this even better. That's a very big transformational moment at that time. So obviously play versus practice. Once again, how many times is the player playing versus what are they practicing? And what does practice actually look like, to be honest with you? Because how many players that you know actually know how practice is supposed to look, the different types of practices, the motor pattern changes and things like that. I'm constantly looking at coordinative ability. So when the player's walking out to the range, all right, if I ask them to do something very simple, like put your left wrist in a bowed position and rotate your left forearm. If this becomes a big issue really early on, all right, we're going to have to go a different route. Okay, doesn't mean they can't do it, but I can't spend half the lesson working on just that, or I'm going to get fired at some point and I'm not going to be able to create that transformational relationship with them. Obviously, from a business standpoint, we want students. Okay, I want students because I want to make some money and I want to provide for my family, but I also want those students to have a connection to me because as a good coach, I'm always going to have a connection to them. We're looking at perception, and I don't mean like through your eyes necessarily. A lot of players are, my mentor Jack Lumpkin used to tell me all the time that the only reason we have a job is most players are trying to do the wrong thing and succeeding in it. And we want to make sure that their perception of what actually is supposed to happen is aligned with ball flight laws and aligned with how the golf swing functions and that type of thing. So a lot of times it's looking at their perception of what's actually supposed to happen. How many players have you told somebody, oh, you're supposed to do that? They've been playing golf for 25 years and they still don't know that's supposed to happen, whatever that is. And then their goals, which I think is huge, okay? At Jupiter Hills right now, every Wednesday and Friday, I'm giving golf lessons to a member, all right? It didn't take me long, and it would have taken me a long time prior to opening up a little bit about coaching, is this person is not actually there to get better. This person actually is there because they're bored, all right? They play golf, all right, but they're also a little bored, all right? And they like spending time with me, and I had to sit down and talk to them about this. And I didn't bring up the fact that I think they're bored, all right? But I did sit down and said, look, if we're gonna, when this person asked me to do this twice a week, all right, I was delighted, obviously, because that's an opportunity to fill my book. But at the same time, I'm sitting there going, do I really want to do this twice a week? So I sat this person down and we really talked about some goals. And we really talked about accountability and the purpose for why they were there. I said, if we're going to spend this much time together, then I have to hold you accountable to certain things, okay? Because that's how the relationship's going to be, is that I'm going to take pictures, we're going to do things, we're going to do this, we're going to create our own language together, we're going to have fun with it, we're going to talk about children, we're going to talk about the great restaurants to go eat at and things like that, but we're also going to hold each other accountable because I'm going to be ready for you every day when I come, and I'd like for you to be ready for me. So even though during our time, I know her number one goal is not quite to shoot a lower score, she's gotten better, all right, because there's some accountability. And I get to hold her accountable. She gets to hold me accountable. I'm there on time. I'm ready to go. I always have a plan for her. But I don't get as frustrated as I normally would because I do realize that the purpose of her spending time with me is to spend time with me, all right? And she makes her spouse happy, all right, when she's spending time with me and working on her golf game. And she has gotten better and we have some fun with it. But I think realizing the purpose, I used to not do that as a coach or as a teacher. I assumed everybody that came and paid me money for a golf lesson was dying to shoot lower scores. And that's not it. And I think if you're not looking in that direction in that way, you're not creating that transformational environment. All right, if you're thinking that everybody is there just to shoot a lower score. Some want to hang out with the cool golf pro. Some want to hang out because they're bored. Some just want to hang out with you to try new technology and talk to you about golf and things like that. And I think if you're a really, really good coach, you can always coach everybody. You don't only have to coach the person that is dying to get better. And I think when you do that, you expand your playbook and you expand who you are. So I judge every day when I drive home. after 8 lessons, I said, how quickly, all right, did I assess everyone correctly? So I look at that as a quarterback looking over the defense. All right, we've only got a little bit of time. The play clock is running. And am I looking over this defense and getting into the best play call first? And am I calling a really good first play? Is the play call that I call right off the bat going to give me the best opportunity to gain yardage? So most of the time, my first play call is 3 yards in a cloud of dust, okay? It is not a double reverse flea flicker, okay? I want to make sure that I'm earning trust, all right? That I'm concentrating on my skill values, that I'm concentrating on the fact of what's this person's coordinative level and those things. So I kind of judge my day each day on how good was my assessment and how good was my first play call. And if I'm successful with the first, I know I'm going to get to slide in a second. And then it's like, when do I call timeout for the day? When do I know when to stop calling plays? When do I know to call one more? All right. And usually that one more play is the one that gets us all in trouble. So we called 2 good ones and we think we're on a drive and we call a missed play just because it's not time yet. So from a play calling standpoint, I would encourage everybody to kind of think in that direction. I don't care the plays that you call. I want you to kind of think like a coach would think. So I always think this way when I go into lessons. I never know when it's going to happen. So if I go into a coaching session today, let's say I had 8 of them, all right? I think our default is constantly to technique. It's like every time we give a golf lesson, it's completely about we're going to change something. And most players are sitting there thinking like, well, I'm not sure I want to go get a lesson from my golf instructor because he or she's going to change something. And I don't want to play bad for 3 weeks while I try to get it. And if you're playing bad for 3 weeks, then you got a bad lesson or you didn't listen. And we need to be thinking that not every play call needs to be technique. So I look at my 8 golf coaching sessions during the day and I say, well, I know some of them are going to be technique and a lot of them will be. But how many of them are about intent? So for example, I had a player not too long ago. He comes in, I sometimes do this little 6-ball test with him. I'll have TrackMan on just a couple of little numbers about start direction. I very rarely in the beginning put anything about the path of the club or what the club's doing. I only put what the ball's doing. So like, what's the start direction of the shot? What's the spin axis of the shot? Okay. And which way does the ball curve? Okay. So the player comes in and he hits 6 shots. So I want you to just hit 6 game time shots. All right. Each ball starts left. It has left curve on it. And he said, see, that's the problem. That's the problem. That's what I want to get rid of, coach. And I said, okay, great. So we looked at the 6 numbers. Obviously, every number start direction was to the left, spin axis to the left, ball curve to the left. That's my pain point shot, coach. I want to get rid of it. I said, okay, let's give you another 6. Where does a draw start in relation to the target? Well, it starts right. I said, okay, great. How about you try to start the next 6 balls to the right? How many do you think you can do? Well, I don't know. So we got to pick a challenge point. How many do you think you can do? He says, I think I can do 4. I said, great, let's do that. He did 5. He had 5 better shots, all right, that shaped like he wanted. I haven't done a thing. All I did was identify was his intent to start the ball there. Right? Now, I don't know about you guys coaches, but if I get somebody better in 5 balls, if I were built houses for a living and could do it that quickly, I'd probably be the most popular contractor on the block, and I could probably get paid more, right? So I think if we get it in 5 balls, we ought to get paid more. Of course, it didn't go that way. We had to talk about football for the rest of the time, but that's kind of how we need to be looking at this. What's the intent? And that goes back to that perception. And the other side of this is strategy. And I see that a lot, obviously, in short game lessons and things, is putting especially, is maybe the strategy's off. Maybe they're not understanding that controlling speed is actually a guess. It's a guess for all of us. None of us know how hard to hit a putt, okay? But we've got more recall than our students, so we're better at it. But allowing them to guess, it's a guess, all right? Now, the more you guess and the better you guess, the better you get at guessing, the more you control your speed. So let's work on guessing, and let's create strategies about that, letting yourself go. And there are so many times where we can create that relationship, especially in the first couple of lessons, that diffuses that I've got to change my golf swing and I got to bleed for 3 weeks while I get better. And I think if we're thinking from a coaching lens and we're thinking about strategy, and intent sometimes, we can all look at a golf swing and see the technique issues, okay? Can we dig deeper? Can we peel back the layers of the onion enough to find out, is there an underlying factor here? Because I'd much rather give a whole bunch of intent and strategy lessons than I ever would start changing golf swings, okay? Change is hard, right, for people. And we want to make sure now when the intent and the strategy and the skill level requires that we make technique changes, then by all means we should. I just think sometimes as coaches, we default to that first. So how do you keep score? If we're going to be good coaches, all right, we got to be able to keep score. And obviously the intent for most of us as coaches is to have the player shoot a lower score. Nothing's better for us than somebody to send you a text or to come and say, shot my lowest score ever, just shot my age for the first time, just beat my husband for the first time, just beat my dad, whatever, just played great in a golf tournament, okay? Those types of things. And those are scores on a scorecard, but how do we do that in a lesson? And to me, that's where technology comes in. So here's three of my partners, TrackMan, Swing Catalyst, and K-Motion. These are my scoreboards. So if I had TrackMan up there and I had Club Path and Club Face up there, and player comes in and he's, you know, swinging 8 degrees left with a 4-degree open club face, all right, we identify the pain point in the swing. This guy wants to hit a draw really bad. His friends always pick on him about a slice. And we start working on a couple of things. And within 50 minutes or so, he leaves and he's swinging 5 degrees to the left, all right, with a 2.5-degree shut face, and the ball's still cutting. All right, did we get better? Yes, we did. We got better, and we can measure the fact that we got better. And even though we're not to the desired ball flight, our scoreboard says we were really down at halftime, all right, and midway through the third quarter, we got better. And I need you to come back for the rest of the game. I need you to come back and let's work towards that. Swing Catalyst obviously does the same thing with video, one of my huge partners, and the fact that our pressure into the ground, how we use the ground, and K-Motion. Obviously, if y'all follow me on Instagram or any of those types of things, you've seen some stuff that we did this weekend with a young player from the Pittsburgh area who really made some huge changes with the help of 3D and K-Motion. And we use that biofeedback as our scoreboard. Did you hit your spot? Did you not? And we allowed that to creep into her, and she started calling her own plays. It feels like this, Jason. When I do this, I always nail it. Now it's not me coaching her, all right? I'm just a guide at that point. She's coaching her. She takes a whole lot of accountability in that. She becomes a huge active participant in her own improvement. So technology is awesome when it's used the correct way. If it's used for evil, we get fired. Somebody says something about us to another member. Yeah, she pulled out that machine and it got weird and there were a lot of numbers up there, and that runs through a locker room like nobody's business. That will ruin your transformational environment in a heartbeat. So always make sure with technology that you tell them it's a scoreboard. All right. If we want to change the ball flight, or we want to change the way the body moves, we got to change the way the scoreboard looks. So we've kind of talked about, to review a little bit, we've talked about developing a playbook. What are the skill sets? What are the corner pieces that you can look around? All right. How do you evaluate quickly a golf swing or a pitching motion or putting with skill first, technique second? The human factors that go into that, getting ready for a coaching session. So let's just think about how quickly some of this could happen. I got to see the skill development. All right, while they're hitting shots, I'm asking them to do certain things. Can you hit it around that corner? Can you do this? Can you hit it lower? Can you do that? I'm developing or analyzing skill, assessing skill very quickly in that. I'm talking to them while I'm doing it as much as I can, finding out time. All right. I know my corner pieces to each skill situation. I know how I'm going to look at a golf swing or pitching motion with steep shallows and opens, okay, and closes. And now I'm buying in and calling my first play. If I'm lucky, I've had the opportunity to talk about goal setting and formulating plans first, okay? But most of us are not the first time. The young lady that I had this weekend, we were able to sit down and have one of the best coaching sessions I could possibly have because it's the off season. The first day she was with me, her father and I sat down and we talked about what you're getting ready to see now. I went and watched her play. So for 2 hours before I ever had to suggest anything, I knew who she was as a person. I had TPI assessed her, BioSwing Dynamics assessed her. I talked to her and made her talk about her goals. I also made her talk about her superpowers, which I think is a big question. All right. So if you want to be a great coach, you would ask somebody in there. So I know you hit this big slice, but let me ask you this: what are your superpowers as a player? Well, everybody talks about, like in my group, that I'm a good bunker player. All right. If you can get somebody to admit their superpower really quickly, the whole dynamic changes from a coaching standpoint. It's like, find something they are good at. And I ask the question sometimes, like, so you're a good bunker player? Yeah. I said, why do you think, what makes you a good bunker player? Man, I'll tell you, I got a lesson years ago about spanking the sand with the bounce or something, and it just really resonated. And all of a sudden, you are learning cues constantly in that conversation. You're getting them talking about something they're good at. You're getting them to answer questions that are leading you into cues, external cues that you may be able to use in this golf lesson, in this coaching session. That is a window into their golfing soul. How do you feel when you get in a bunker? I'm not worried about it at all. All right, I've been a good bunker player since that lesson. It was really awesome, and I love showing off. I said, you love showing off? Yeah, I love showing off my bunker game. We are now going to transfer that into our situation with our player and whatever other skill we're working towards. So from that standpoint, before I had to call any play with this young lady, I had all of this information, and here's kind of how we did it going forward. This is not going to be her information. But from the standpoint, do your habits match your goals? I said this to a father this weekend. He texted me last night. He said, I love that comment. I did not make it up. I don't know where it came from, but I do use it a lot. He said, I've used it 3 times already. I asked his son, you want to be a good player, you want to play in college, do your habits match your goals? So this is kind of how I go about goal setting. I know everybody has their own way. If yours works, keep it. But I look at outcome goals versus physical performance goals and mental performance goals. So I'm looking at an outcome goal is a measurable. I'd like to win the section championship next year. All right. So if I want to win the section championship, all right, that's kind of the goal that I write down on a piece of paper. I fold it up, I put it in an envelope, and I lick that envelope and I stick it in my desk drawer. I'm not focused on that any longer. It is in the future. It is way out there. Okay. I'm going to look at the physical performance goals and the mental performance goals that will allow me to achieve the outcome goal. And that's where some of the skill testing comes in. So physical performance goals are simply, what do I need to do? Well, I got to drive the ball better, okay, to win that. I got to drive the ball better. And what else do you do? I got to make more pressure putts to win the section championship. Okay, great. And my sand game needs a little work, okay? And then mental performance goals. Well, I'm not really good at carving out time to practice. So I need to create a practice, time to practice, and I need to create an environment where my skill from practice will transfer to the golf course. And I tend to get down on myself on the golf course, so I need to improve my self-talk. All right, I really need to focus on that. So now we've got a couple of little things. All right, so we would go into initial goal testing, and I know that as we go through this, there's a lot of what I heard in Iconic Golf that is in this as well. Outcome goals, physical performance goals, mental performance goals, we're going to ask the player all of that. Now, drive the ball better is not good enough for a coach, okay? Make more pressure putts is not good enough for a coach. We have got to drill till this becomes something simple. And that's where it goes back to our skill sets. What if we find out when we're testing the player's ability to drive the golf ball, all right, that he just hits it in the toe all the time, all right? I would be guilty of that, all right? That's why I don't drive the ball very well. I tend to have a toe miss, and the ball tends to go left. All right, do I have to change my swing, or is there some small thing we could do in a grip or intent or anywhere that could allow me to better hit the ball in the center of the face? All of a sudden, I drive the ball better. Now, I'm not downing technique at all. I'm not downing skill changes. I just want to find the easiest answer to the question if I can. And if I'm never testing and I'm never goal setting, that's going to be really difficult to do sometimes. And I'm going to really hurt my opportunity to create a transformational relationship. So as we go in that, I'm going to ask the player their goals. Then I'm going to test their skill in these areas, especially the ones that they think are pain points or that they need to improve. And then I'm going to sit back down with them, and we're going to go back through those goals, meaning physical and mental, and we're going to plan our attack. Now, this actually was from a player last year who said his initial goals when he came to us, why are you here? What can I help you with? What is our goal? He said, I want to go from a 6 to a 3. And I had to say a traveling 3, right? And he's, yeah, traveling 3. I said, okay, good. All right, so what do you think you need to do? I need to make more putts. Not good enough for coaches, right? What do we do? What does that mean? Everybody needs to make more putts, all right? I need to improve my wedges. I need to hit my driver longer. I need to practice more effectively. And I need to improve my concentration over shots, all right? Vital answers that anybody would give in the beginning, but it's not good enough for us, and it doesn't reflect an active participant yet. Anybody could say that. So after testing, obviously the outcome goal remains the same, but we needed to improve face control to hit better starting lines when he said make more putts. He controlled his speed wonderfully. He read the greens wonderfully. He had an issue in the stroke where the face was moving around too much, and he really wasn't focused on hitting starting lines. All right, so we worked on that. That becomes part of his plan, part of his practice plan, part of what he does when he works on things on the golf course. We found out that his wedge, distance wedges just launched too high, okay? He didn't understand the ability that controlling wedge distances has everything to do with how the ball's launched. Can you control trajectory? If you can control the trajectory of the ball, you've got a better chance of controlling the distance of the ball. He had never thought of it in that direction. We talked about improving his low point control on his finesse wedge. All right, this particular player hit all his low shots around the green awesome. All right, he hit his medium shots and higher shots a little too far behind the ball. So when he was allowed to deal off the club and things like that to hit a lower shot, he was much better. So it just came down to, we don't have to change your low shot. We've got to add a better mid-game and high game based on controlling the low point. If he wanted to hit his driver further, which is one of the things that he said, we needed to improve his fitness level. Now, that didn't mean that we had to change everything in his body, but we do through a TPI screen, we found out that we needed to increase his thoracic mobility. He didn't have the ability to make a big enough turn. All right, so when he goes into the gym, all right, we're only working on that. All right, we're not trying to be Mr. Atlas here. We're doing some gym exercises and some things that would allow him. Now, as he gets better at that, he's going to start drinking the Kool-Aid. Well, what if I added this? What if I added that? And then we also needed, he tended to hit just slightly down on his driver. We talked to him, he wasn't down much, but we talked to him about that if we increase the attack angle. And once again, that can go back to just intent. Oh, I'm supposed to hit up on this thing? Okay. And those were the things that would allow his driver to go further. And then we implemented a practice plan with measurables. So we wanted his practice to actually have task-oriented, not time-oriented things. So when he goes to practice, it's about completing the task, not about how long did he spend out there. So if he does his games, reaches his challenge points, boom, he's home, or he's gone to play golf. And then the last thing was on the golf course, we wanted to implement the 3P process, which for me, and once again, there are very few things in here I made up. I just pulled all the things I like together. 3Ps just means before every shot, we wanted to plan the golf shot. We wanted to prepare to hit the golf shot, and then we wanted to perform the golf shot. And we just wanted to run that through and add that into practice, and then what he does. Yes, yeah.
I had a question. So, like, a lot of these are testing.
Yep.
And obviously, you sit down, you have the first initial interview. What are your goals? How long does this process take? Like, is this a week? Is this 2 weeks?
So I try to, depending on the student and where we are in the relationship. Okay, so I'm not throwing this out at a guy first lesson.
Yeah.
Okay, unless that player, which we've all had this happen to us, and I hate this, and then this is why I kind of started filming this. So let's just say you come to me and say, "Hey, Jason, I just bought a 5-lesson series with you," which I don't have those anymore, but this used to happen. You know, really want to, like, we're going to get to work on this. Okay, so he's just purchased some package. Okay, and he's telling me I want to get to work. We're going to do this. Okay, great. Now, in that situation, I am going to this first time we're together. Okay, because I'm going to find out what his goals are. He's already told me he's going to spend 5 hours with me. Okay, so I don't want that 5 hours, because what used to happen with that is, let's just say he comes in. I know I got time. I got time to fix something. I got time to fix this takeaway or whatever. All right. And then so we start working on that very slowly, no big deal. And the second lesson, I know we're going to take over and we'll work on that and see where he comes. Says, "Hey, pro, I can't make a 5-footer. I know we were going to work on that thing, you know, that we started last time, but I got to play Saturday and I can't make a 5-footer. So now I'm out there trying to make a 5-footer. He comes back in the next time. I think we're going to get back on track. okay? And I couldn't get it out of the bunker the other day. And so all of a sudden, all right, he's taken over. We're going to get nowhere, okay, with what our goal, without a plan, all right? I will happily, in that situation, now tell him, say, hey, I'll help you with your bunker, okay? We'll get 5 minutes, we'll get it out of the bunker, but we need to get on what we talked about. We got to stick to our plan, or you're not going to be successful. They're not going to be successful, and that's the end you see of them most of the time. You end up just band-aiding everything. So to answer your question a little deeper, if the player's committed, and I know, and we'll talk about that at the end too, if the player's committed and we are a team at that point, then I'm going right into this early. If it's a first lesson, player I don't know, okay, I'm waiting to create that relationship where they're going to come back. And then maybe, hey, what's your real goal? You want to play better? And now we're digging, okay? The lady that we talked about earlier that's coming to me because she wants to spend time with me is not seeing this at this level, okay? We're talking about accountability. We're talking about planning out what we do and things like that, but obviously not at that level until she goes, you know what? This is really fun. I'm really enjoying these things. Like, what else can we do? Then we may lead her down something like this. The testing doesn't take very long at all. I literally test putting with a dime, okay? And I test short shots with a small ring it's actually a putting cup type of thing that you throw around in a practice round. And I will sometimes do a TrackMan combine on full swing, but very rarely do I just test for skill and save it in TrackMan. But I could test all 3 skills in one lesson if I needed to, in 1 hour increment.
When do you throw in the TPI assessment? And how often?
So I'm TPI assessing everybody in some way, shape, or form. On bioswing dynamics testing everybody in one way, shape, or form.
Day one?
Yes, in some way, okay? So it may only be if I'm watching a player and we're seeing, I just see something coordinatively, or I see something that looks like a limitation. I'm going after 1 or 2 screens at that point.
You don't take the whole screening and set them down and have them go
Not in an initial situation. While I would love to do that this weekend with the girl, I did everything, okay? Because I had the time. I knew we had set it up where it's like day one is get to know one another, assess, so that I can really call a good play. And but in other situations, I just need enough information to not call a bad play. I don't think everybody gets weird about taking the whole screen, okay? But I think in the very beginning, if they're not expecting that they are equating that with a bunch of change. Okay, he's going to send me to the gym, that kind of thing. And that environment is such a good environment, all right, but very misunderstood still from the public. So a screen of some point in every lesson, but the one that basically goes right to where I think the pain point is in their golf swing, so that when I make that initial play call, I'm not going to make a bad one. So coaching practice to players a little bit. I don't know if any of you are familiar with game-like training, but Ian Highfield has become a confidant of mine. I've learned a ton from him. And I kind of put practice this way. Some rules of game-like training are: every good practice session should have spacing, variability, and challenge points. So let's take practice to learn first. So practice to learn, that's a kindergarten classroom. All right, practice to learn, and everybody should kind of declare when they go to work on something. So if I'm going to work on some type of technique change, obviously a lot of that in the very beginning with that's going to be a practice to learn environment. And practice to learn means there needs to be some stuff around. There needs to be some alignment rods. There needs to be some pool noodles. There needs to be some training aids. There needs to be some different targets. There needs to be something. I like practice to learn, even when the player's on their own, to look like kindergarten classroom. Colors and stuff everywhere. Anything to excite, all right, what you're doing. Anything to create that involvement in what you're doing. So practice to learn, that's where all your cool stuff is, okay? That's where any technology is, and that's where any training aid is. It needs to be colorful. If you need, like I said, when you follow me on Instagram, if you've seen some stuff with some of my students where there's string and there's hoops and there's all kinds of things, just so we can kind of identify what we're trying to work on. And then practice to perform needs to look like the damn game. Okay, it needs to act like the game. It needs to smell like the game. It needs to have everything the game has. Okay, and in that practice to perform world, and this is why I chose that picture of, I think it's Saquon Barkley, is that, do you think Saquon Barkley was taught how to do what he's doing? Do you think in practice that they work on this move? I don't think Saquon works on this in practice. I don't think there's a drill for this, right? All right. I think Saquon is improvising, he's adapting, and he's being an athlete. All right. And I don't think that, I think that should be involved in practice to perform. So I always encourage players to do weird stuff in practice to perform. All right. Do the stuff that's going to happen in the game. All right. That doesn't happen very often in a New York Giants practice. All right, it happens in games. So make sure that the game or the practice to perform looks and smells and feels like a game. So to kind of better understand spacing, variability, and challenge points. So if we just said, this is just a way to explain it. Let's just say you're going to go practice, okay, and you're going to hit 20 balls. All right, if you hit 20 balls in 20 minutes, that would be spacing. So you hit a shot, okay, walk over, get a drink, say hey to somebody, clean your club, okay, whatever. 20 balls in 20 minutes, all right? Variability would be changing targets and clubs every 2 balls. So now I'm gonna hit 20 balls in 20 minutes. I'm gonna change clubs and targets every 2 balls, all right? And then I'm gonna create a challenge point. The challenge point says I'm working on hitting a draw. So every ball that starts right and curves left that I hit relatively solid, I get a point for. And today I'm gonna try to get 12 points. So if I hit 20 balls in 20 minutes, all right, changed targets and clubs every 2 balls and created a challenge point, I'd have an awesome practice session. But how many of our players do any of that? Very little, right? Okay, when in on the golf course, obviously there's spacing. All right, I'm gonna get to hit a shot and I'm gonna talk to my friends. I'm gonna get in the cart and we'll drive, 200 yards and I'm gonna hit it out the wind. Then I'm gonna get in my cart and we'll drive. So there's spacing there. I'm never hitting the same club twice, okay, except my putter, all right, unless I got to reload off the tee, okay? And then there's obviously a challenge point. And the challenge point goes with everything. How do I handle the players that I play with? How do I handle the conditions, the variability of all that goes on in golf, not to mention what you write down at the end of the day. So that slide right there actually had a really cool picture on it. I don't know how it didn't come through, but it's chaos. Okay, so the picture was golf is played in chaos. All right, we'll go to the next one, but I want to explain what chaos means. So the picture had a player getting ready to hit a shot with about 8 sprinkler heads all around him going off. And he was still locked and loaded, ready to hit his shot. All right, golf is chaotic. It is probably the most chaotic game that's played. There are so many things out of your control. Every player, what's the most popular word said in a golf lesson from student to coach? I want to be more consistent, all right? I'll show you a couple pictures from our bay as we close here, but I've stricken that word from Jupiter Hills. Don't say consistent. I will kick you out in a heartbeat, all right? I hate that word, all right? Consistency. You're first of all, a human being who is extremely messy, okay? We're a different human being every day we wake up, and you're trying to walk in here, play the most chaotic, inconsistent game consistently. You're setting these expectations so into a place that isn't going to allow you to succeed. No matter what you do, if that's your thought process, you're not going to be successful. All right. You have to be adaptable. So I hope some of you, I would assume maybe about half the audience has watched Trevor Reagan's Zoo Tiger versus Jungle Tiger. Any of y'all ever watched that? Certainly take a look at that. Google. It's on the Learner Lab. It's awesome. I show it to students all the time. It's about a 4-minute video about how the Zoo Tiger and the Jungle Tiger are both tigers, all right, but because of their environment, they are so different, all right, and I won't spoil it for those of you who hadn't seen it, but it's an awesome way to kind of get this point across. Are you understanding that golf is chaotic, and are you comfortable within the chaos? You cannot control where the tees are, where the pins are, which way the grain's going, which way the wind's blowing, your playing partners half the time, what club you're going to hit, what the yardage is. There are so many things, variables out there that create chaos. All right. When the cart girl's going to come by. I mean, things like that. There's a lot of chaos out there. All right. those who play the best are the most comfortable in the chaos. And I think we all had the opportunity to see The Last Dance. And me as a kid growing up, obviously through that, I had no idea how much chaos was in that last year, the behind the scenes stuff. We weren't seeing that. It was a different world, right? And we look at how those athletes, especially Michael Jordan, obviously who grew up in my neck of the woods, handles that and how they perform within that chaos. And I think we need to coach our players. If you're coaching your players transformationally, you'll be able to have these conversations with them about being comfortable in the chaos. Yeah.
Jason, would you have a problem in taking that statement that we all get about consistency and saying one thing we can pursue is the consistency of our effort?
100%.
Would that be just to take that little thing and
100%.
head in that direction? You know, as a team, what we're going to do together.
Love that. Love
We're
that.
going to get better together.
Yeah, and drawing them back to the plan.
That's
we
doable.
we can be consistent in our planning. We can be consistent in the way that we map out what we want to do, but we want to add the chaos into that so that we keep feeling comfortable 100%. Because and I know you're going to walk out there every time, and you're going to be consistent in your effort, aren't you, as a coach? 100%. And I think most of us are. And all we're asking is the same of them. And we're kind of different from that standpoint. Like we get into just a comparison from a fitness standpoint. If I walked in and you were a fitness director and I said, hey, look, all right, I really need to drop a couple of LBs here, probably about 10 or 15. You said, okay, I'm going to sign up for a session with you. Okay. I know good and well at the beginning of the session that 15 pounds aren't coming off. All right. I know it's a process and I know I have to do things and I know you're going to help me plan that out. I do not understand sometimes how we have pigeonholed ourselves as coaches into, I'm going to fix Jackie in and out. Now some things can be done that way and some things can't, but they've got a process, a treatment plan. So last thing on our list here is about creating programs. And I used to get this question all the time from general managers and directors of golf and things like that. And I never knew, once again, kind of how to explain what it is that I do, all right, and why programs are programs. So I stopped a long time ago putting programs into categories of ladies first swing type of thing or whatever. Okay, they're really not gender specific for the most part, and they're really not handicap specific. They are commitment level and planning consistent. So if you're going to be a successful director of instruction, you're going to run programming, you better make sure you have programming for everybody at that club. All right, you need to touch everybody from the best players, all right, on down. But if you never label it that way, okay, you only label it by low commitment and low plan, all right, you're always, as a coach, you're trying to make those players that are low plan, low commitment, which every club is going to have more of those than the others, and they can be two handicappers. Yeah, I just don't practice that much. I kind of play on Saturdays. They're just good players, okay? Have something that appeals to them if possible. And then you've also got the people that, complain about shooting 104, but you never see them on the practice and they never take lessons, and it is what it is. But try to have something for them. And then try to have something for that mid-commitment, mid-plan player that does know what a TrackMan is, that will get fit for a club every now and then, all right? And then that high commitment, high plan. Now, there's always the fewest of those at every club, but they deserve something, obviously, as well. That's the person we're always after coaching. It certainly is for me. I want the person that, I don't care if they're 400 handicap, as long as they want to plan something with me and commit to it, I get a lot of joy out of coaching in that standpoint. But using that as just a guide to double check each year how your commitment looks and how your programming is developed. And you can share that with general managers when they ask you why you did something. So in closing, as we close up here, just a couple of pictures of some things that we've done here to create our culture. Take it as like the sign and running out of the Notre Dame locker room, play like a champion today. We want to be able to put the things that we like. We want to have those things. So there's our game-like training there to the right. We have a mannequin with our TPI T-shirt that also houses our K-Vest system. We promote TPI, obviously. There's a picture of the screen right there in the bay. This hangs in our member bay. So we've got practice like you've never won, play like you've never lost. Do your habits match your goals? And we've got a sign up there. Don't try to be consistent, strive to be adaptable. Have a shelf up there with every player's bag on it that's of our staff. and some practice rules and things like that. We just want them to not be able to run away from the culture we're trying to create. We want them to see it each and every time. This is kind of us planning with the girl this weekend, sitting down with her parents, whiteboard is out. This is a planning session. This is what we're trying to look at. I want it to look that way. I want it to feel that way. And this is a TPI screen there on the right where we started with. If you have the opportunity to be able to do this, I realize everybody's schedule doesn't, but this is what all of us as coaches should be striving to get to. I don't get to it every day. I wished I did, but damn, is it fun and enjoyable and worthwhile if you can. This is us down at our fitness facility. We have the same type of thing there. We have a room set up for TPI where we bring people in and start doing things with them in that situation. We don't want them to be able to run from the culture. We want them to see it all the time. We want them to embrace it. So in closing, I would just kind of sum it up this way. What's your promise? Your individual promise. That was how I defined mine. That was how I tried to come about with that, and I'm comfortable with it at that point. But it's like any plan. It's adaptable as well. As I grow and learn, I'm going to get better from those things. I'm going to add to it. I may even subtract. I'm going to find my corners. So find yours. What do you believe in? Keep them as much skill-based as you can. So you leave room for adaptability in your coaching. If you're a stack and tilt only coach, what happens when every player isn't coming in there with a stack and tilt world? Okay, I don't want to ever be, and that's not to put down any method. I study them all. I love them all. I just don't want every problem to look like a nail. If I only have a hammer, every problem's going to look like a nail. Develop a process, test for skill, and this is the big thing. Create a game plan with an active participants. And back to your question earlier about when do you do this and who do you do this with? All right. I do it as much as I can with an active participant. I kind of wait to see that moment when I know they're activated and in my world and they want to do this. And then develop programs that match your culture. Everything needs to kind of match what you've defined as a culture. And that obviously is individual to every club and every situation. I want to thank my partners there. And I also want to thank our partners, Iconic Golf, Techno Gym, and PXG and Super Speed. Fantastic. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Also want to wish all the best of luck. I'm honored to be a part of this teaching symposium. I'm absolutely honored to be here with John Bierkin and the legendary Jim McLean. If you'd have told me when I first started playing golf that I'd ever be on the same card as Jim McLean, I would have done double backflips. So it really means a lot to me to share the stage with those two fine professionals. I wish them all the luck this week. And obviously want to thank again the section staff, Jeff and Meredith and Jackie and the whole team who have done a fantastic job of helping me through this. So we'll take any questions if you have them.
Jason, I've got a couple that were emailed in.
Sure.
The first one is, how effective do you think online coaching platforms are? This is where a student will send in a video to be analyzed and the instructor emails back the recommended changes.
Yep. I think though that, obviously in this world of what we're dealing with, that's become a huge thing. And I think at most 100% can work if that gap is filled between understanding the skill, all right, and how the technique works with that skill. So if there's the feedback in there, protocols that can be in place where there can be, hey, I need you to, I'm making this up. I'm sure Iconic has got some really good stuff on this, but just off the fly, hit 6 balls, okay, with your 7-iron. All right, take a picture of it with Dr. Scholl's or Strike Spray. I would recommend Strike Spray, obviously from Super Speed. But and say each time you hit a shot, okay, all right, when you email me back, I want you to send a picture of where the ball was hit, and I want you to tell me where the ball went. All right, you can do that in 6 swings and have an idea of the contact, So I think it most 100% can work as long as there's that planning level in there, and as long as there's that commitment to that plan. And the technique or the skill can be in there. I think when it goes badly, it's only technique, which is very difficult to do online effectively if you don't know some of the other things.
Another question, please share some marketing ideas.
Marketing ideas. I'm really bad at marketing only because, all right, of this. And I've had to work on that because, I get asked to do certain things and I know I should be a little more out there, but I have a hard time marketing Jason. So there's no logo or anything like that. And I've kind of gotten around that in my own way by offering my services to TPI when I do TPI things, when I do stuff for sections and chapters and stuff like that. I feel like that markets me in the light that I would like to be marketed in. And I think what you're marketing, if you're doing it well, is you're marketing your promise. And if your promise works, you know, if your promise that what you do is working, that's the best marketing. I read a book years ago called Guerrilla Marketing. And it was a big part of it was take your small circle and make them never want to leave you. Market from within, and they will share your message a lot better than you could ever share it. But I do struggle with that because I'm not a me guy most of the time. I try to be a bigger picture guy. I want my brand to stand out because of the promise. But I think Instagram and Facebook, sharing what you do, Twitter, sharing what you've done to help others, all right? Those are most of the things I try to put out there, as well as things I think would help other coaches.
You mentioned Instagram a few times during your talk. Is that your number one platform just to send things?
It's my quickest and easiest, and it's my most fun, I guess. I mean, I enjoy like sharing accomplishments of others on there, and I think it's becoming a quick and easy way to do it. I don't send, you know, other than what we do through golf.com, I don't send a whole bunch of correction videos on people. But I do send things that I think another coach could look at a drill and go, man, that would help one of my players. And I do the same with my mentors and people that I respect on Instagram. It's like, man, I got to do that because that's awesome. That would help Jim, you know. So I think it's a great sharing place when done correctly.
Somebody just sent in, you talked about a player making a change based on their puzzle pieces. Are there certain changes that you found are easier than others, especially for players that may not be that committed?
Yeah. Okay. So great question, actually. I kind of, and I'll just put a slide in about this, but I kind of layer in things in my mind. And once again, the Eastern North Carolina redneck kind of thing, I got to keep it pretty simple. So, you know, it's like I layer things in and I kind of say, okay, like the first play call type of thing. Like, let's just say it's a dead pull. Okay, whatever, just the shot shape. I'm fixing the shot shape. I'm not fixing the swing. And I think that's huge in the beginning. It's like the person came through me. They think their swing's messed up. Okay, so they think I'm going to rearrange their swing. Their ball's messed up. So if I'm going to fix the ball first in my head, their swing will take over in some ways. Okay, so what are the biggest influencers on where the ball goes? All right, and this is just me talking. All right. Said, okay, well, the club face, its orientation, the grip, okay, the alignment, the ball position, all right, all those types of little pre-swing things, and then intent's huge, you know. All right, so I'm going to look at each little play call, all right, as the simplest thing. And if I combine 3 simple play calls, I probably, you know, pick up quite a bit of yardage in the scheme of things. So I'm always going to kind of layer those out. So I'm always going to go pre-swing influencers first, and then I'm going to look at backswing influencers, how that does to the ball, and then intent. Okay, and normally I'll flip those out. Actually, I'll go forward swing first, and then backswing. Even though backswing's backswing, it's awesome. I don't. You have to ask that question a lot. I made a really big mistake recently with a high caliber player of not asking which side of the swing they were most successful on in their head and thinking of something. I'm totally on the forward side of the ball. Okay, you can ask me to do anything, and you ask me to do anything in the backswing, and that will drive me nuts. This person, high-level player, completely the opposite. So I called a really bad play, first play, all right, and I had to dig myself out for the next 50 minutes, okay, of that first bad play call. All right, I had to get out of that one as quick as I could, and it was because I didn't ask the question. So I think biggest influencers, especially with under-committed players, would be pre-swing geometry is what I call it. You know, the geometry of how I'm delivering this implement to the ball and how it starts from that standpoint. Yes, sir.
This is kind of back to one of the slides you had before, but you talked about the 4 main corners of putting, and how you analyzed it. And one of them was the badass factor. How do you, I have a question and then a follow-up.
Yeah.
How do you measure, because all those were measurable, like centered contact, all that stuff. How do you measure the badass factor?
I'm glad you asked that because this is probably why Dan K doesn't want his name in there sometimes, okay? So I made another really, really bad play call, and that's why the badass factor's in there. It's where challenge points come in. So I had these really cool, this was years ago, I got these really cool new putting gates. Okay. It was really awesome. I was so excited. And Dan Kay wants to work on his putting. All right. So I set him up at about an 18-foot right to lefter and an 18-foot left to righter. And guess where I put the putting gates? About 4 feet out on his starting line. I hadn't tested them. I hadn't messed with them myself. Hadn't done anything with them. Okay. I put them too far out on his starting line. And I said, we're going to make this one through the gate, and then you're going to walk over there, and you're going to make this one through the gate. All right. Guess how many he made? Like none. He was missing the guy. That was way too big a challenge point. Okay. So I took a guy who came to me for his putting. Obviously, his badass was low at that point. His badass meter was pretty low. And I just drove it deeper into the ground. So from my badass factor, when I test somebody with that dime and we do our little 9-hole thing, all right, and I ask, how do you think you did, Jackie? And Jackie goes, I did okay. I did okay. I just kind of missed that one. So you know what, Jackie? I have tested a lot of elite players in this situation, okay? I haven't seen anybody control speed any better than you did. Like, that was fantastic. Badass meter went up, okay? All right, and look, every time you needed to read a green, all right, like you read them wonderfully. Badass meter goes, like, really, you're an elite green reader, Jackie. All right, I think if we work on stabilizing your putter face so you can better hit your starting line, you're going to be amazing. Okay, so we start with good.
Yeah.
All right, and I got that from Rick Pitino years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not a coaching fan of necessarily, but he did say, you know, you never say, hey, Jackie, you know, like you got to work on your shooting. You're not a very good shooter. He'd say, Jackie, if you did this, this, and this, you could be one of the best shooters in the country. And that sounds obviously very different. So I think you need to do that.
Yeah. And the follow-up I had to that was like, do you ever try to, in order to influence that, are you only grabbing from the mechanical, like, pool, or are you trying to really just make them feel better about themselves like that? It's like, are you using more mechanics to boost that factor, or are you saying like, okay, sometimes we can just boost that factor and then it brings along the mechanics?
Yep, I try to
It
do.
just depends.
No, 100%. It's individual, but I'll always try to go skill first if I can. So I had a guy not too long ago come to me. He says, I need your help. I need your help. I need your help. What's wrong? I can't make a 5-foot. I happen to have a chalk line sitting out there. And I said, you can't make a 5-footer. Come on out. Let's see what's going on. Now, most of the time, old Jason, bad Jason would have gone, well, let me see what's going on with your stroke and your aim and your this and your that, you know, which are all important things. I don't discount those, but this guy's in immediate cardiac arrest over making 5-footers. All right. I said, here's what I want you to do. I said, we're about 5 feet away. We're actually 4 feet away. I said, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take the putter outside. All right. And I want you to make the putter. I want you to take the putter inside on the next one and make the putter. Outside, inside, outside. And we did that 3 or 4 times. He goes through 8 balls. Okay. He makes 6 out of 8 going outside, and the next one going inside, outside, inside. Now grab the balls. I said, now find the middle of that. Boom, boom, boom. Every putt goes in. Because so you just made 6 out of 8 putts with bad strokes. You think it's your stroke, okay? But you're just making bad strokes, making putts. You're not focusing on where the face is. You're not focusing on what actually directs the ball. That was his problem. So to your point, I went into something that was so non-technique. It was actually bad technique to try to bring the athlete out. All right. And then once I found the athlete, now the athlete's going, damn. And I said, now how's your badass factor now? Okay. Like you just sit over here and you said, I'll just make it this way and I'll make it that way. And I think that's an important thing sometimes, but you got to measure that with, you know, the challenge point. Are you giving somebody to something too tough to do? All right. Now for that and a 4-foot putt, that wasn't difficult. Sometimes I do that in full swing all the time. As soon as a player, if he wants to hit a draw and he hits the first 4 draws and he's all excited, all right, I make him hit 3 hard cuts as hard as he can go, then go back and refine how we hit the draw. Because the brain craves that type of learning. It wants to be in that situation. Doing it over and over again doesn't learn.
Another question that just came in. When you do have the time to screen and plan with a student, is there any way that you collect and store that data?
Yeah, I'm really lucky that I have TPI has our app. So I store all the TPI app data, and our Baile Swing Dynamics have a chart for that. I will most of the time keep that in. I have a folder right next to my computer in the bay that has all of those in there, so I can reference arm lengths and things like that as we go. So I'll store that there. All the data's on there, and I've been using Coach now. We were switching over. I'm a partner with Swing U. So all my data will now go to Swing U. We're actually we've created an app for our members, which I'll be able to store stuff there.
And to add on that a little bit, do you ever go back and reassess?
Always. Not very much in Baile Swing Dynamics, but always in TPI. Yeah.
About how often you do that?
Depends on the player, the plan, and things like that. Like if it's somebody that's really like committed to the physical side of it, and our trainer's working with them, I love to take them back in. My dream is to get where I'm doing this completely on K-Motion. We can screen everybody, so I could sit there and measure the amount of thoracic turn they started with, put them in the program, remeasure it with K-Motion. That's my dream. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but we have 2 K players and a K vest to be able to do that in the future. But I think that's huge for the badass factor of the player and the plan, especially if it's like that player we were talking about with thoracic rotation.
Another question, give me some examples of some of the things you'd work on in the forward swing and the back swing.
Depends on what the ball does. Is there anything specific on what the ball was doing on that?
That's the question from here.
Okay.
You're just pulling,
Yeah.
you're pulling the ball flight back to how you're going to address it.
Yeah, I'm always going to look at ball first, obviously, and my plan is going to be if you like planes and things like. I'm a big part. I love all that kind of stuff too. I really do. I just see so much in teaching that in a bad way, and there's some great ones too. But we're so into that, and you got to have your way of doing things. Like I know several coaches who teach on the elbow plane and this plane. That's their corner pieces, and that is what works for them. They're great coaches. All right, find your corner pieces on those types of things. So they're like getting into swing plane conversation, which I'm assuming is kind of where that's going. All right, I have no idea where swing plane is. There's a ton of them. Okay, it depends on who you talk to. I know where mine is. I know where I like to coach it on, and that's kind of where I work from. And a lot of that comes from body.
Who are some of your mentors and other coaches that you admire?
Big mentors. We mentioned Cam, and we mentioned Jack Lumpkin, and we mentioned James Seekman. Mike Adams has meant the world to me because he's not me. Okay, like I'm the Eastern North Carolina redneck. He's a scientist kind of thing. My father was a big influence on me. Obviously, Todd Anderson's. I was there quite some time. Mike Shannon's been a big influence on me. Brad Faxon's a very good friend of mine now, and he's been a huge influence on me from things we've talked about. It's kind of funny. Like we have something. I gave him a little drill the other day for a player. My daughter went to pre-K last year. And she comes home and I said, hey, Blake, how was it? What'd you do today? She said, well, we went to Imagination Playground. It's like Imagination Playground. I'm like, what the hell is that? That's kind of cool. She said, it's this room, Dad. And we have these big blue blocks and we can move them all around. And we can build whatever we want. And I was like, I want to go to Imagination Playground. That sounds cool. So we developed a game. I have a time in practice with players, especially if they're players that are on the plan where we call a play. It's like Imagination Playground, like 5 minutes. Okay, whatever we're going to do. So Imagination Playground, this is one of the ones I gave to Fax was like, okay, you got 6-foot putts all around the hole. Okay, you got to set a challenge point. How many can you make? Okay, I can make 4. Okay, great. Now we're going to change the rules. All right, the rules are we're going to create chaos because we're going to change the rules. All right, we're going to create chaos. You can only hit one with the face of your putter. And you can only hit the other putts one way. So you can hit it with the back of your putter, but now that's out. Now you got to get a sand wedge. Okay, and you've got to practice problem solving. You've constantly got to practice problem solving. We did something the other day, which was on Instagram, which you guys might love, is we did what I call my Jim Nance drill. Okay, so we put these players, they were on little teams, and these are kids, and we put them in really weird situations where they had to figure out how to get it. But before they could hit the shot, they had to become Jim Nance. And they had to explain, oh, Timmy's over here in a little spot of bother, and he's got a trash can, and he's got this, and it's a tough lie. He's going to really have to bang this into the hill. He's going to have to put the ball back in his stance. He's going to have to lean forward, and he just wanted him. And then when they hit the shot, we were saying, oh, what a great shot. So declaring those types of things. So mentors from that standpoint have come from all kinds of places. Lance Gill, all my guys at TPI. Like we said, Jack Lumpkin and Todd and Gail and all my people from Sea Island. But there's influence from a coaching standpoint. My father, Mike Krzyzewski, I'm a Duke fan. Don't hate me on that. I grew up a North Carolina fan, but there's some things that happened. And really it happened because I got to watch Coach K in practice. I got to actually go to some practices, so that I changed from a coaching standpoint.
I saw Faxon did that with Rory a little bit. Did Yeah.
Yeah, he liked it, so we went that direction. And Fax has some really good ones too. Like he has some fun ones too from that standpoint. So it's been a fun relationship to kind of share some ideas. So he's I think we've mentored each other on that.
Very cool.
Any books you recommend?
Any books?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I think it's called Solid Contact, How to Make Solid Contact from Jim Hardy, just because of understanding steeps and shallows. I think that's a huge one. Pressure Principle from Dr. David Allred's been a big book for me and kind of taking my mind out of golf and that type of thing. You know, a lot of us that are my age kind of grew up in the golfing machine world. So I think that's still viable from an understanding and creating your methodology, so to speak. I wouldn't go crazy with it, but it still does set a great foundation for things like that. So and then Mike Adams will have a new book coming out that I think is going to be fantastic. And with Terry Rolls and those guys that I think is going to be really good. I think finding that individuality of every player. So.
Anything else?
We're good? We're good. Thank you all again. Thank you very much to the section for having me, and good luck to John and Jim, and thanks for the opportunity. Hope to see you around.